This is Jess from Make and Do Crew, and in this video I'd like to show you how to crochet a puff stitch circle. And these circles are used in my Dahlia scrap GAN pattern, which you can find on makeanddocrew.com, and I'll also link the free pattern right below this video. And something that's kind of cool about these circles is that you can actually use a variety of weights of yarn to crochet them, and they'll all end up the same size. So we're going to be using Lion Brand's Color Made Easy for this tutorial, and this is a category 5 bulky weight yarn, so it's a little bit thicker. But in the Dahlia scrap GAN, we also use a few worsted weight yarns, and one of them is Heartland. So this is a category 4, a little bit thinner worsted weight yarn, and in the pattern you would just use 2 strands of this held together. So no matter what you're making, if you want to use up a variety of stash yarn and make circles that are all the same size, you just need to combine a different number of strands to make your puff stitches. So in this case we're going to be using this one, but I'll also tell you how to modify it for a thinner yarn like worsted weight yarn. And then today I'm going to be using a size M hook, which is 9 millimeters. Okay, to get started, I'm going to make a magic ring, and if that's a totally new concept to you, I would just search another video that has more detailed instructions on it, because I'm not going to cover it in a lot of depth here. Or if you prefer, you can also just chain 5 stitches and then slip stitch to join them, and that'll make a ring also. So once you have a ring like this, we are going to begin by chaining 2. And then we're going to work a partial puff. So what that means is half of a puff stitch, because these chain 2 are going to kind of contribute to the puffness of the first stitch. So that means I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, and pull up a loop, and then yarn over, insert my hook, and pull up a loop. So I did that twice, and now it's a bit hard to see, but I have 5 loops on my hook. Now I can yarn over and pull through all 5. And then every puff stitch we work is going to finish with a chain 1, and that just kind of closes the puff stitch up. So now we've worked 1 partial puff here, and it's finished. So now I'm going to work 7 more puff stitches in this ring. So a regular puff stitch in this pattern is to yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over again, and pull up. I need to do that 3 total times. So right now I just did it once. 1, go through the center of the circle, yarn over and pull up. Now I've done it twice. I should have 5 loops on my hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over and pull back up. So now I should have 7. And every regular puff stitch should have 7. So now I'm ready to yarn over and pull through all 7 of these. And then I'm going to do that chain 1 to close it up. So that's what a regular puff looks like in this pattern. We need to repeat that 6 more times. So let's do it once more together so we make sure we have it. I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, grab my yarn and pull it back up. So now I have 3 loops. And I'll do that again, yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over again, pull it up. Now I have 5 loops. And once more, yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, and pull it back up. 7 loops. Now we're ready to yarn over and pull through all 7, and then finish it with a chain. Now one thing to note, if you're using worsted weight yarn and you're holding 2 strands together, instead of yarning over 3 times for each puff stitch, in order to make them the same size as if you're using bulky weight yarn, you're actually just going to work 2 yarn overs, just like we did for our partial puff. So I'll show you once here what that looks like. This is only applicable though if you're using worsted weight yarn, and you would do this for every one of your puffs. So you would yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull it up to have 3 loops, and then yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull it up to have 5 loops. And then you would finish it off like this, do a chain, and then move on to the next one and do the exact same thing. So the reason that we're doing it that way is I just figured out after a lot of experimentation that holding 2 strands together is a little bit denser overall than using 1 strand of category 5 yarn, and that's why you don't need to do quite so many yarn overs. If you do 3 yarn overs, it might work for your yarn if it's super squishy and it can kind of crunch down, but if not, your circle could end up a little bit extra wavy, and it also may not be the same size as if you're trying to make some circles out of a category 5 yarn and some out of 2 strands of category 4. So I'm going to tear this out To there, I'm going to work 5 more puff stitches around, and I'll meet you at the end of this round to talk about what to do to finish this round off. Okay, now we're at the end of this round. I have 8 puffs here. Aren't they so cute? Now I'm going to slip stitch into the top of my first puff. So what that looks like is actually the chain that closed it. So that's right here. And I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, and just pull my yarn from back here and just slip it through the loop that's on my hook. So now I've created a closed circle here, and I just need to slip stitch into the next little space between the puffs. So that just means inserting my hook, yarning over and pulling up that yarn, and then slipping it through the loop on my hook. And what that does is move my yarn over so I'm ready to work in the space between the puffs. And now we're going to begin this round just like we began the first one, which is to chain 2 and then work a partial puff. So that's just yarning over and pulling through twice. So there's 1, and then yarn over and pull through again. So now I have 5 loops on my hook, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through. So that's my first puff, and it's just starting with those chain 2s there. And I need to chain 1 to close it up. Now in this round we're going to put 2 puff stitches in each space between the puff stitches. So we're going to double the number of puff stitches we have. So I've worked 1 here, and I'm going to work in the same space here by yarning over, inserting my hook, yarning over and pulling up. So now I have 3 loops, yarn over, insert my hook, pull up, 5 loops, yarn over, insert my hook, pull up, and now I have 7. So I can yarn over and pull through all of those. And then I'm going to chain 1 to close it. So you can see I have 2 in that space now. Now I'm going to move over to the next space, and I'm going to work a puff stitch in here and then a second one right next to it. So I chain 1 to close it, and then I'm going to put another one right here. And if you're using 2 strands of worsted weight yarn, we're going to do those puff stitches just like I showed you in round 1. So you would just yarn over twice instead of 3 times, and then you would yarn over and pull through when you have 5 loops on your hook instead of 7. So you can see here I have 2 and 2, and we're just going to continue like that all the way around. So the next place we would go is insert our hook in the next space and put 2 puff stitches there. So let's work around right here, and again we'll slip stitch to join at the end of the round. Okay, at the end of the round here, we're just going to slip stitch just like we did before. I'm working into that chain at the top of the first puff and pulling it through. So now we've joined that round, and I need to slip stitch into the next space to start round 3. And in round 3, this is going to look really familiar because we're going to work 2 puff stitches in the first space. So the first one's a partial puff here, and I'm going to chain 1 to close it, and then I'm going to work a full puff right next to it. So we have 2 puff stitches in that space, and now we actually only need to work 1 puff stitch in the next space. So we're going to work in this pattern for round 3 where we place 2 puff stitches in one space and then 1 puff stitch in the next space. So we've got 2 here, then 1, then we need to do 2, and then, you guessed it, we'll do 1 in the next one. And you're just going to repeat like that all the way around. You should end then with 1 puff stitch in the final space to complete the pattern. So I've got 2 there, we've got 2, 1, 2, and we've got 1 here. So you can work like that all the way around. We've got 2, 1, 2, 1. You'll work around like this, ending with 1 in this space, and then slip stitch to the top of the first puff to join it. All right, I'm at the end of the round here, so I'm just going to slip stitch into that top of the first puff, and then I'm all finished with this puff stitch circle. So as I mentioned, if you work one in worsted weight yarn, you can hold 2 strands together, use the same size hook, and they should end up almost exactly the same size. If you're noticing they're not the same size, just play around with maybe doing 1 more yarn over in the worsted weight one, or using a different hook size, but it should be pretty doable to make them all the same size, which allows you to use up lots of different weights of yarn in whatever project you're making. stay tuned for the next video in the series where we talk about how to take your puff stitch circle and turn it into a granny square. And once again, if you'd like to check out the Dahlia Scrapgan blanket pattern, you can find it for free on makeandocrew.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out all the rest of our other free patterns. There's everything from blankets to sweaters to scarves and lots more video tutorials just like this. Thanks so much for watching and happy crocheting!